Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and today I got another episode of Field Test. This is a video series where down below in the comment section, you guys let me know what weapon setup you would like me to try in a future episode, so what weapon and all of its attachments, and then I pick from one of the top rated comments and then put that loadout through its paces. And I kind of just let you guys know why I liked or why I disliked that particular loadout. And for today, I'm going to be trying out the F2000 with the Cobra bipod and heavy barrel attachment. You also have here that I should use the Rex. I apologize, I didn't notice that when I first read over this, so I think I was using like the MP443, so once again, I apologize. I really don't think the sidearm is all that interesting, and really the main gist of this video series is to test out the primary weapon. So admittedly, I never really used this weapon before this video. I only had a couple attachments unlocked. That's also one of the reasons why you're going to see me use the red dot sight and not the Cobra sight. Once again, I hope you guys can forgive me. They're pretty much identical. But anyways, I never used it. I remember before, or a very, very long time ago when the game was first released, it was one of the best weapons in the game. Everyone used it. It was that flavor of the month gun like the M16A3 was. And then it kind of got nerfed into oblivion, or not really oblivion by any means, but it got nerfed a fair amount, and now you don't really see it as much on the battlefield. And so when I first started off, I was like, oh great, this weapon never really appealed to me. That's probably why I never used it in the first place. And now I'm gonna have to kind of grind through this and try to give you guys a good video. And that really didn't happen. The first couple of rounds I joined into for some team deathmatch just to try to get some unlocks, I destroyed the enemy team. This weapon is actually one of the most enjoyable guns I've used in quite some time. And one of the main reasons why I was a little hesitant about it was because of its recoil. If you look at its recoil numbers on Simtech.com, you'll notice that its horizontal recoil is pretty much identical, and it's gonna bounce between that and make it very difficult to kind of predict what direction it's going to bounce when you start to shoot. And when I first saw that, I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to take anyone out at medium to long range because I'm not going to be able to control the recoil. I mean, it does have a slight tendency to move on over to the left, but, you know, in most circumstances, you're not going to notice that, and it's just going to kind of bounce back and forth. And so I thought that was going to be a bad thing. But when I was playing on a bunch of rounds, I realized that because it bounces back and forth, it pretty much stays in the same location, but kind of, you know, deviates just slightly. And as long as you point at the enemy and they're at medium to close range, they're going to die, and they're going to die extremely fast. And the reason why they die so fast is because, well, it has the same damage model as pretty much all the assault rifles, doing 25 damage up close and 18.4 damage at long range. But the main reason is because of its very fast RPM. It has a rounds per minute of 850. While this is not the fastest out of the assault rifles, that would go to the FAMAS with 1,000, and the AEK also has a 900 RPM. That's still a very substantial advantage out in the battlefield when, you know, most weapons are going to be a little bit lower than that. So really, I was very surprised at the killing potential for the F2000. Another thing I was pleasantly surprised about is that it has an amazing hipfire accuracy, especially if you compare it to a bunch of the other assault rifles like the AEK. And I found myself, in most circumstances, if I was in a close encounter engagement, I wouldn't even bother by aiming down sight and taking that, you know, split second to do so. I would just spray from the hip and get those kills quite easily. And because most people, even in close encounter engagements, are normally going to aim down sight, that split second that they have to take the time to aim down sight was usually enough for me to have a huge advantage over them and win those engagements quite easily. So all those great things about the weapon, though, do come at a cost. It does have a pretty substantial reload time. If you have a bolt in the chamber, it's going to take you 2.5 seconds to reload, but if you've gone through all of your ammunition, it's going to take you a substantial 3.5 seconds. This is still not as long as the AEK, so if you like that weapon, you're going to feel right at home with the F2000. Really, it is a very long reload time, and if you're in a sticky situation, you're probably going to have to switch to your sidearm and be very comfortable with it, because trying to reload this thing in the middle of a firefight is just not going to get the job done, and you're going to be way better off just switching to your sidearm. Another pretty substantial disadvantage, and as I mentioned before, because this weapon does have a pretty unpredictable horizontal recoil, it can kind of be a pain in the ass to take out those long-range targets. And don't get me wrong, you can still take out, engagements that are at long range. You're just going to have to be very patient, you're going to have to be very diligent with every single one of your shots. But in most circumstances, I would just kind of ignore those targets and, either try to get closer or ignore them completely and go on my merry way slaying people up close and personal, which is really where this weapon is going to excel. So, as I said, you can take out those long-range targets, but for me, I got the most out of this weapon moving around the map, trying to make sure that every single engagement that I came across was either up close and personal or at medium range, where this weapon really does excel. As for your attachment recommendations, I have to say that I thought you guys were trolling me a little bit, especially when I saw the bipod recommendation, but I was kind of pleasantly surprised after I started using it and getting accustomed to it. I mean, the heavy barrel, while it's really meant for long-range engagements, and as I've said probably just about a minute ago, that this weapon really isn't meant for that type of combat, it's still going to increase your medium-range damage and also increase your accuracy, so you can't really go wrong with that one. But as for the bipod, this is a close-range weapon, so I thought to myself, at first, why would you want to use this attachment that is really meant for, staying kind of in the back and shooting people at long range? So I didn't think it would work all that well, but after I deployed it in places where I knew there was going to be a lot of foot traffic, I was pleasantly surprised at how fast you kill people and how accurate it was. While still not going to be as accurate as something like the G3A3 with a bipod or something along those lines, you are going to just destroy people when you have it deployed. I still don't think it's going to be as good as the foregrip. The foregrip is just going to make you a little bit more effective and make you more accurate at medium range engagements and even up close. So while I still don't think it's as good as that, it still was pleasant. It was a pleasant surprise, and I'm glad I tried it out. Overall, I really enjoyed this setup. It was a lot of fun to use. I still don't think it's going to outperform the AEK or weapons like that, simply because it lacks that long-range killing potential. But if you like to use a weapon that excels extremely well up close, you kind of like that Rambo roll, then you should definitely try out the F2000, and I highly recommend it. But that's it for today's field test, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, or just want to support my channel, I always appreciate it when you give my videos a rating, and if you haven't already, subscribe for more. But until next time, guys, have a good one, and take it easy.